Before we dive in, I want to take a moment to acknowledge everyone who has been showing up for this channel. Your comments, your energy, your messages. They mean more than you know. Whether you have been here for a while or this is your first time finding this space, welcome. This reading is for you. Now, let's get into it because this one is powerful. There is a specific kind of silence that follows a moment when someone realizes they miscalculated. Not the comfortable silence of resolution, not the peaceful silence of something that has been settled between people who understand each other. The specific, slightly heavy, nobody quite knows what to say quality of a silence that follows a moment when someone who is speaking too freely has encountered the full consequence of having done so. That silence is present in the energy of this reading, and it belongs to the people who chose to underestimate you. I want to begin with what it means to underestimate a Virgo, because underestimating you is not simply a mistake in the ordinary sense of having misjudged a situation. It is a specific kind of error, one that carries its own correction built into it. When people underestimate you, they tend to do it loudly. Not always, but in the pattern that is present in this reading, the underestimation did not stay quiet. It became the subject of conversation, of the specific, slightly careless quality of people who are confident in their assessment and who allow that confidence to express itself in ways that go beyond the private. They talked, they said things based on their version of who you are, a version that was incomplete, that did not account for the full picture, that was built from the limited angle of what they had been allowed to see, rather than from a genuine, accurate understanding of what you are actually capable of. And then you showed them. Let me describe what showing someone who underestimated you actually is. Because it is not about revenge or proving a point in the petty scorekeeping sense. It is simply about being fully what you are in a moment that called for it. That is all. You did not engineer the moment, did not construct a situation designed to produce a particular outcome for a particular audience, did not manage your performance for the specific purpose of making people regret what they said. You simply were what you are, fully in the moment that was in front of you. And what you are, when you are fully being it in a moment that calls for it, is considerably more than what the people who were talking had accounted for. The gap between what they had said and what they were now witnessing, that gap is the shame. I want to describe that gap more specifically because it has a texture worth examining. It is not simply the gap between wrong and right. It is the gap between the version of you they constructed from limited information and the version that exists in full. Between the picture they were confident enough to speak about publicly and the picture that the moment produced for them to look at directly. When those two pictures sit side by side, the distance is visible, and that visible distance is uncomfortable to sit in, especially in a group, especially when everyone in the group is aware of what everyone else said. That is the specific quality of collective miscalculation becoming visible. It does not land on one person. It lands on all of them simultaneously, and they are all aware of each other's landing. And I want to speak to the group dynamic because this reading carries a collective quality, a group, the specific, slightly more complex energy of multiple people who had arrived at a shared assessment of you, who had been through whatever the conversations and dynamics were, reinforcing each other's incomplete picture. The particular way groups sometimes calcify around a version of someone where the assessment is passed around, confirmed, and eventually treated as settled fact. Settled facts have a way of becoming very uncomfortable when the person they are about demonstrates the fact was wrong. Not wrong in a small, easily dismissed way. Wrong in a visible, undeniable, this changes the whole picture way. And when that happens, the group has to reckon with it together. That collective reckoning is more uncomfortable than individual reckoning because everyone in the group is also aware of what everyone else contributed to the shared assessment. And what everyone contributed is now also sitting in the room with all of them. Tell me in the comments if this is landing on something real. Whether there has been a group in your life, people who spoke freely about you, made assessments that did not reflect the full picture, and whether you have recently had a moment that corrected the record. I want to know if this reading is finding the right situation. I want to speak to how you carry yourself after a moment like this, because the moment itself is significant, but what comes after it matters just as much. There is a temptation, after being vindicated in the specific, visible way this reading describes, to stay in the energy of the vindication, to allow the satisfaction of having demonstrated what those who spoke freely could not account for to become the primary orientation. That temptation is understandable, and it is worth moving through it rather than settling into it. Not because you owe graciousness to people who were careless with their words about you. You do not. But because the vindication is not the most interesting thing available in the aftermath of what happened. What is more interesting is what the moment reveals about you, not to them, to yourself. Let me describe what this moment reveals about you, because it carries specific information. You maintained yourself through whatever the period was, the period during which the talking was happening, during which the underestimation was the operating assumption of the people around you. You continued to be what you are. You did not shrink to fit their picture of you. You did not expand in the performative direction of someone who is trying to prove something. You simply continued with the specific, unremarkable quality of someone whose sense of who they are does not require external validation to sustain itself, whose standards for their own behavior are internal rather than calibrated against what the watching expects. And that continuing that quiet, self-sustaining quality is what produced the moment, not a performance, just you being what you are continuously. I want to say something about the talking, about what it reveals about the people who did it. When people talk freely and carelessly about someone they have underestimated, they are not primarily talking about that person. They are revealing something about themselves, about where their attention is and what they spend their energy on, about how they relate to people who are not present in the room, about their relationship with the human impulse to bond through shared assessment of those who are not there to represent themselves. The talking tells you something about the talkers, that something is useful information, not for building a case or organizing a response, that demonstrates what you know, for the quieter, more personal purpose of understanding more accurately who you are dealing with, of having a clearer picture of the people and the dynamic than the surface of interactions had previously provided. The talking, in revealing what it revealed about them, actually gave you something, a more complete picture of what you are working with. I want to speak to something about why the underestimation happened in the first place. Not to excuse it, to understand it accurately. People underestimate what they cannot fully see. And what they cannot fully see in you is connected to something specific about how you exist in the world. The quiet quality of someone who does not lead with their capability, who does not announce what they are capable of in advance of demonstrating it, who carries the full weight of their intelligence and precision without wearing it as a display. That quietness is one of your genuine qualities. It is also, in certain dynamics and with certain people, an invitation to incorrect assumptions. Not your fault, but worth understanding clearly, because the people who underestimated you did so in part because the version of yourself you had been making available to them did not include what the moment eventually revealed, not through concealment necessarily. Through the natural quality of someone who does not offer the full version of themselves in every context. The full version appeared when the moment called for it, and the moment calling for it is what they were not prepared for. I want to speak to something about what comes after this, not as a prediction, as an observation about what tends to follow moments like this one. The dynamic has changed, not because you did anything to change it deliberately, because the information available in the dynamic has changed, because the picture the people around you are working from is more complete than it was before. And a more complete picture tends to produce different behavior. Some people respond with genuine recalibration, with the honest quality of someone who has updated their understanding and who is now engaging from the updated version, who brings something different to the next interaction because what they know has changed. Others respond with something more defensive, with the slightly uncomfortable quality of someone who cannot quite settle the gap between what they said and what they witnessed. You do not need to manage either response. You do not need to make the recalibration comfortable for them. You simply need to continue being what you are, which is what you have always done, and which is what this moment proved. As we close, I want to leave you with what this reading is actually here to offer. Not a focus on them, not on what they said, not on what they are feeling now, not on the satisfaction of having been vindicated in a visible way. A recognition of what you are made of, the specific, durable quality of someone whose character does not require validation to exist, who was what they are before the moment that made it visible to others, who will continue to be what they are whether or not anyone is watching or acknowledging or reckoning with having underestimated it. That constancy is the thing, not the moment itself, not the reaction of the group, not the silence that followed. The specific, quiet, continuous quality of someone who simply is what they are, regardless of whether the people around them have the full picture. You have been that person through all of it. Before anyone saw it clearly while it was going unrecognized. And after the moment that made it impossible to ignore, that is who you are, Virgo. Not the version they were talking about, not even the version that surprised them, the version that has simply always been there, consistent, clear, fully itself. That version does not need anyone's recognition to know its own worth. It already knows. It always has.